The story opens on a magnificent, sunlit estate. A man introduces himself as Cedric, the second son of Marquis Montpellier. Under a shower of flower petals, they fell in love. Cedric asks her to marry him, but Astolat Hallstein, the Grand Duchess, hesitates. Deciding there is no reason to hesitate, her choice is made. He gently places a wedding ring on her finger. She gave him all her power, believing she'd live as a queen, but a sudden doubt arises. She realizes their beautiful romance and his proposal were all a lie. In a flash, 6 years have passed. She stands alone at the foot of the throne, where the new king and queen sit. Accused of impersonation, she is sentenced to death by appointing Cedric. In chains, she desperately pleads with a cold, distant Cedric. Reaching out a bloody hand, she screams that this ending makes no sense. Thump, the tragic story comes to a bloody end. A dark-haired woman at a desk pulls her hair in frustration, vowing to write a better story. Sitting in her quiet room, she is struck by a sudden, brilliant idea. She awakens with pink hair, confused and questioning why she is in this new body. She finds herself kneeling before a guillotine, guarded by 2 knights. King Cedric impatiently orders the execution to begin as she looks up in shock. He bids a cold, final farewell to Astolat. Just before the blade falls, she curses the game she's trapped in. With a bloody splash, she experiences her first death. She awakens, reborn as a young girl in an ornate canopy bed. Now a child, she sits up and looks around the lavish room. Her expression is distant and thoughtful, processing her new reality. She realizes she's been transported into a dating simulation game called A Crown for You. As the main character, Astolat, her goal is to elevate a male character to the throne. She recalls the 5 target characters, thinking that marrying one was her ticket home. A violent slash of blood signals that the path to the throne is brutal. Frustrated by her repeated deaths, she returns to the starting point, calling the game a scam. She decides to target a character with a low favorability rating, hoping for an easier path. A bloody hand crushes a crown, a stark reminder of the vicious power struggle. Crying, she laments that the men who claimed to love her always ended up killing her. A memory of an innocent boy declaring his undying love surfaces. But once they became king, they all turned on her, demanding her death. She concludes that making a husband king is not the way to a happy ending. Sobbing, she vows that she will not let herself be executed again. A single, determined tear falls from her eye. She realizes there is only one option left. She must become king herself. A system notification appears, offering a new route she never knew existed. A quest appears, but to complete it, she must attend a ball she is currently too young for. A new subquest for palace etiquette appears with a time limit of less than 7 days. She panics, realizing the time limit is impossibly short. She realizes with dread that the critical event is happening today. She despairs, believing this supposed hidden route is impossible to complete. Drawing on the knowledge from her countless deaths, she believes she can succeed. With newfound hope, she thinks she might be able to save that person. Looking into a mirror, she steels her resolve for what's to come. A smiling, pink-haired man appears behind her in the mirror's reflection. Her eyes widen in surprise at the sight of him. A pink-haired man lovingly cradles a woman with matching hair. The story begins with the famed tragedy of Duke Hallstein. He defied expectations, marrying an older woman for love and soon welcoming a child. But their happiness was tragically cut short by his wife's death. In his grief, the Duke refused to remarry, choosing to raise his daughter alone. In a different scene, a light-haired man expresses his joy at seeing a young pink-haired girl named Ava, reflecting that her affinity was maxed out from the start. He thinks back on the beautiful moments he was able to experience because of Ava. Having already witnessed Ava's death 4 times, he resolves to get ready, as today is the day he meets Pere. He recalls the image of a young, radiantly happy pink-haired girl. Looking at her smile, he silently vows to save her this time. The scene shifts to a grand, glittering palace. A man identified as King Rodrigo warmly welcomes the arrival of the little princess. The pink-haired princess, drawing on experience from her past regressions, decides it is best to present a dignified appearance. King Rodrigo compliments the princess, Pere, on how beautiful she has become, noting that a young pink-haired boy named Astal is already 10 years old. Pere responds with a graceful and perfect curtsy. The king lifts her onto his lap, playfully wondering how much she has grown. He then laughs heartily, teasing her for getting quite heavy. Pere looks up, momentarily flustered by his comment. The king feigns anger when she speaks back, but she knows he is like a second father to Astolat. She playfully challenges him, a confidence she only gained in her third life, asking if he could truly be angry with his lovely niece. Her charm is successful, triggering the activation of her first passive skill. The king's feigned anger melts into playful affection as he spins her around, only stopping when Astal protests. Her first objective complete, she now plans to stay in the palace to obtain the queen's care. As Astal watches, Pere whispers a request to stay for a few days, which the king enthusiastically grants. King Rodrigo holds Pere and formally suggests she stay at the palace for a while. The king tells a conflicted-looking Astal that he needs his help with the burdensome affairs of state. Pere hops down, cheerfully announcing her intention to greet the queen. Her departure leaves the king flustered, trying to call her back. She approaches a set of grand, ornate golden doors. Inside the chamber, Pere peeks from behind a pillar at a waiting maid. As the maid announces Lady Astalot of House Hallstein, she reflects on the powerful skill she is determined to acquire. A status window displays her high stats, which she acknowledges are not from training, but from knowledge gained over multiple regressions. She readies herself, practicing a flawless curtsy before the meeting. She believes that displaying a ladylike demeanor is crucial to increasing the queen's favorability. Astalot is presented to Queen Rosetta, a woman she has come to see as a mother figure. Her perfectly ladylike demeanor impresses the queen, causing her favorability to increase by 1 point. Worried she won't be able to attend the ball, Astalot sees an opportunity when the queen offers to have a new dress made for her. A glint of determination shines in her eye. Astalot makes a bold request to inherit the dress once worn by Sister Floria. The queen is surprised by the request, which Astalot follows with a pointed remark about the commoner's toil. Her gambit fails spectacularly, and a system alert shows the queen's favorability has dropped by 6 points. The queen questions her again, but Astalot firmly repeats her stance. The system notification confirms her tactless behavior has lowered her favorability to 45. The queen dismisses her concerns as childish, leaving Astalot shocked that her calculated words had the opposite effect. A new voice from off-screen startles Astalot by asking if she likes her that much. The newcomer is identified as Princess Floria, the king's eldest daughter and Astalot's cousin. Princess Floria suddenly appears and embraces a startled Astalot, acknowledging the younger girl's admiration. Floria smiles, correctly guessing that Astalot wants her help choosing a dress. As Astalot excitedly praises Floria's taste, Queen Rosetta watches from the side with a look of disapproval. Astalot's expression turns to concern as she sees a stat window revealing Princess Floria's skills are lower than her own. Astalot expresses her desire to attend the ball, and Floria enthusiastically suggests they get matching dresses. Astalot looks momentarily flustered by the suggestion. A system window announces a new subquest. Astalot must obtain the queen's permission to attend the ball within 24 hours. The scene shifts to an opulent walk-in closet, filled with dresses and shoes. As they enter the dressing room, Floria muses on what dress would suit Astalot, whose inner monologue praises Floria's master-level artistic sense. Floria expertly considers fashion trends and the weather to choose a color palette, and Astalot realizes that even her passing remarks are valuable hints about her skills. Floria presents a beautiful lavender dress, and Astalot gasps in admiration. Pleased, Floria offers to resize the dress for her, while a narration box ominously states that members of the royal family often die one by one. A dark vision reveals that in past lives, Sister Floria was one of the first to die. Gazing at her cousin with newfound resolve, Astalot silently vows to protect her this time. The scene transitions to a tea setting as an off-screen voice asks if the dress is ready. Astalot stands with her back to the viewer, her magnificent pink hair on display before the queen and her ladies. She is revealed, looking stunning and elegant in her new blue and white gown. Queen Rosetta remarks that Astalot looks ready for the ball, crediting Floria's help for her newfound confidence. Astalot humbly admits she still has much to learn about dresses and royal etiquette. She stands poised and beautiful as white feathers gently float around her. The queen tenderly strokes Astalot's hair, her expression soft and approving. Astalot beams with a bright, heartfelt thank you. The queen looks at her fondly, commenting that she is growing to be just like her mother. Astalot is visibly startled by the unexpected comparison. The grand ball begins as nobles gather in the glittering hall. King Rodrigo looks upon the festivities with a proud and regal smile. All eyes turn as Astalot makes her beautiful entrance. Onlookers are captivated by her sweet and pure beauty. Her father, Duke Holstein, steps in to challenge the king, firmly stating that the first dance belongs to him. The king laughs heartily, playfully threatening to seize the duke's territory if he doesn't yield the first dance with the little princess. King Rodrigo holds out his hand, inviting Astolat to the dance floor. He gleefully spins her around the ballroom, complimenting her elegant steps. As Floria playfully rejects her father's offer to dance, Duke Holstein rushes to a dizzy Astolat's side. Realizing time is running out, Astolat remembers her urgent mission, to obtain the queen's care. She approaches the queen and her ladies-in-waiting, offering a perfect, graceful greeting. The moment is framed by ornate gold and blooming red roses. Queen Rosetta and her companions smile, clearly impressed by the young girl's poise. The ladies compliment her transformation into an elegant lady, and Astolat politely thanks them by name. Astolat smiles, confidently thinking that she has always been well-liked. A system notification confirms that people are amazed by her ladylike appearance, which she recognizes as perfect timing. The queen stands proudly beside a smiling Astolat. Queen Rosetta blushes with pride, looking completely charmed. Astolat rejoices internally, knowing she has finally completed the first quest. A glowing blue system window descends before the surprised princess. Her moment of triumph is cut short as she stands anxiously before a closed door with a maid. Astolat feels the pressure of the 24-hour time limit, knowing she must find her target among the candidates at the ball. Turning suddenly, she spots a mysterious man. Viscount Mockery, the long, silver-haired Viscount, is revealed, and Astolat stares in disbelief, wondering if it's really him. A dark memory surfaces of the Viscount smirking, callously preparing to reveal the truth because his listener would die soon anyway. In the flashback, he warns against suspecting the kingdom's most powerful family. He contemptuously compares someone's foolishness to that of Astolat, Holstein's daughter. Her memory confirms he is the villain who drove her to her death in every life and murdered her father. Astolat steals her resolve, determined to change the future, as a memory of a boy vowing revenge flashes through her mind. Back in the present, Viscount Mockery offers a polite greeting, expressing his pleasure at seeing her well and his hope to see her again soon. Astolat thinks angrily about the Viscount spreading rumors that she's sick. The Viscount asks if that's true, while Astolat thinks that knowing his identity means she has nothing to fear. He beckons her closer, saying he has something to tell her that is going well. He grabs her arm, clarifying that he only wanted to provide a place for her to socialize with friends her age. A narration box reveals this man is wicked and is Cedric Montpellier's father. Astolat laments that his beloved son should have asked to meet her himself. Declaring that she will be the one to choose, not him, she insults the Marquis Montpellier, causing his preference rating to drop, but his likes to increase. She unlocks a new active skill, Cheeky Girl, which allows her to insult nobles with sarcasm. The Viscount apologizes for his fatherly emotions, and Astolat realizes he took her seriously, seeing an opportunity to level up her new skill. She stares in wide-eyed shock at his reaction. She momentarily gets excited about seeing the handsome Cedric, but then scolds herself for forgetting his betrayal. Feigning consideration, she agrees to think about it, which the Viscount gratefully accepts as an honor. Astolat internally remarks on his unbecoming behavior, resolving to use this chance to save her father and end her endless loop of regressions. The Viscount then suggests meeting later in the Night Garden. A maid calls out in alarm as Astolat stands with a look of stern resolve. As he walks away, the Viscount thanks Astolat, saying a meeting might be possible. The Viscount glances back at Astolat with a shrewd, calculating expression. A dramatic transition shifts the scene with a flash of light. A handsome, dark-haired boy in a formal military uniform is revealed. Astolat recognizes the newcomer as Duke Granada, wondering why he is there. The kingdom's political landscape is explained, divided between the aristocratic faction led by Marquis Montpellier and the loyal royalists who follow the king's orders, led by a dark-haired man. A portrait of the dark-haired boy reveals that the head of the royal faction is the Granada family. Astolat is stunned, realizing this is the first time she has met Duke Granada at such a young age. The young Duke Granada kneels before her, as narration explains he was the guardian who protected her unstable position. She feels a pang of regret, knowing he couldn't always be there because he was stationed in the north. Viscount Montry approaches, telling the young Duke to stand, as the king was looking for him. The Viscount excuses himself with a laugh, reminding Astaroth of their earlier promise. The young duke turns to Astaroth, earnestly warning her that Marquis Montpellier is untrustworthy. She coolly dismisses his concern as something a boy shouldn't know, stating it is proper to greet the Marquis. The young Duke of Granada promises that his family will always protect her. Astolat finds the little duke's harsh loyalty interesting, seeing him as a useful new ally. She waves goodbye, suggesting they act their age next time they meet, and deciding she won't need to pursue him. The young duke stands alone on the stairs, watching her depart amidst a cascade of yellow flowers. Later, in a moonlit forest, a maid worries the king will be angry, but a hooded Astolat says she is only going for a walk. The maid warns her to be careful in the dark, and Astolat's king's protection skill alerts her to a nearby presence. Telling her maid to wait, Astolat decides to proceed alone, and her maid reluctantly agrees. Astolat holds up her hand, telling someone to stop, thinking her heart will tremble if she looks at his face. She reflects on needing a strong companion, when a voice suddenly asks if she is proposing, flustering her with its informal tone. The voice suggests that if he marries her and becomes a state minister, it would bring them both honor, a good prospect for a second son. As the voice formally acts to be her family's son-in-law, Astolat realizes she must make a decision about this marriage proposal. She is struck with a sense of familiarity, finding his voice and way of speaking strangely recognizable. A young, dark-haired boy in a blue cloak sits under the full moon, declaring it his destiny to follow her wish. The little Duke of Granada smiles confidently in the moonlight. He takes her hand in his and calmly accepts her proposal. The Duke kneels and kisses her hand, pledging to sacrifice his entire body for Crown Astaroth. A completely flustered Astolat stammers, unable to process what just happened. A system window confirms she completed the mission to find a wedding candidate, increasing her perception, but she wonders if he qualifies as a main character. A blonde boy in a red cape suddenly appears, expressing his awe at the scene. Astolat gasps in shock, recognizing the newcomer as Cedric. Cedric excitedly points out the little Duke of Granada's presence, and Astolat thinks his cute looks make his behavior forgivable, while Cedric muses that seeing them both is a great benefit. The Duke of Granada questions Cedric Montpellier's presence, and Cedric nervously admits his father sent him. Cedric quickly backtracks, claiming his father told him not to say anything, which surprises Astolat. As the Duke and Astolat share a contemplative look, she wonders if Cedric noticed their interaction. Cedric suggests leaving, but the Duke of Granada grabs him, menacingly stating they have something to discuss. Astolat and the Duke walk away from the garden under the moonlit sky, leaving the palace behind. Kachuk! A maid rushes toward Astolat in a panic, who realizes she has been gone too long. The maid urges her to hurry, but Astolat worries her father might use a problematic ability if he gets too anxious. Astolat suggests they defer their conversation until tomorrow, and the Duke asks her to call him Ryan. She agrees, permitting him to call her Astaroth in return. Ryan humbly accepts, saying it's an honor to be allowed to use her name. His formal title for her, the kingdom's only hope, triggers a dark memory of a future where all the other royals are dead. As Ryan leads her away, he quietly contemplates something she said earlier. Her father's distant shout prompts Astolat to announce her departure, and she flees with Ryan. She frantically races through the woods back toward the imposing palace. A system window reveals her father is using a child safety service skill to track her, and she thinks it's good she is no longer with the Duke. She finally returns to find her anxious father, Duke Holstein, waiting at the top of the stairs. After she greets him, her father immediately pulls her into a tight, relieved embrace. He expresses his worry over her long absence, and she apologizes, blaming the beautiful moonlight for distracting her. Her father says it's time to go home, but with her mission timer still active, Astolat worries about what will happen if she leaves. She desperately clings to her father, refusing to leave the palace, which leaves him utterly bewildered. A system notification shows her father's affinity has dropped due to his disappointment, but Astolat resolves that it can't be avoided. She tells him she knows she has become a burden, a comment that clearly wounds her heartbroken father. She explains that, if not for her, he could have kept his right to the throne, remarried, and ultimately avoided being killed a year later. Lying in his lap, she vows to become his wings, not his burden, by growing up as fast as she can. Her father realizes the queen must have anticipated this and prepared a room for her. Astolat understands the queen's catechesis has activated. He confesses he hid the truth because she is young and powerless against the kingdom's greedy nobles. She reaches for him, softly calling out his name. He pulls her into an emotional hug, asking for forgiveness and admitting he only ever wanted to protect her. She hugs him back tightly, assuring him that she loves him too. A terrifying flash of memories, a bloody hand, a guillotine, a lifeless face, overwhelms her, and she lets out a silent scream. Astolat jolts awake from the nightmare, finding herself alone in her new palace room. A maid enters with a tray, expressing surprise that she slept in so late. While her hair is being brushed, the maid asks about her scream. Astolat lies, which confirms the maid's suspicions about her determination to stay. Astolat postpones an explanation for her maid Mina, who urgently announces that the Duke of Granada is waiting for her. Now in a beautiful blue dress, Astaroth hurries to meet the Duke of Granada, who greets her warmly. The Duke seems to be collecting his thoughts, and Astolat silently prays he hasn't told anyone about their marriage proposal. The Duke thanks her for picking up his handkerchief, a clever excuse for their meeting that inwardly impresses Astolat. Changing into a lavender gown, Astolat asks her maid for tea, explaining she and the Duke have important matters to discuss. An elegant tea service with delicate pastries is set out for their private meeting. The Duke gets straight to the point, startling Astolat by placing a formal document on the table between them. A system window announces she has obtained a marriage proposal, which she must now show to the king. They discuss their plan to increase royal support, noting the political pressure on her father and the dire state of the Granada family. The Duke explains Marquis Montpellier tried to take advantage of his father's illness, highlighting Granada's strategic importance. He reveals that the Marquis had already attempted to marry his own daughter to him. The Duke warns that the Marquis's interference would obstruct his family's true mission, a detail that surprises Astolat. She recalls from the game that Ryan stopped the Marquis's rampage, but senses there is more to his family's purpose. A majestic vision reveals the Granada family's ancient duty to guard the northern ice walls for generations. A description explains their sacred mission is to protect the empire from the Ice Queen, who reigns beyond the walls. Seeing a map on the wall behind them suddenly jogs her memory. She realizes with a thoughtful hum that she remembers reading about this critical detail in the original game. She reflects that since he was an NPC, she never cared, but now realizes her debt to him. The young Duke of Granada sits poised and pensive in his formal military attire. She asks if he too needs to find a fiancée to secure his position as Duke. Astaroth sits alone, framed by an ornate window and a cascade of ethereal flowers. She ponders their situation, and a sudden thump echoes in her mind as her eyes widen. The young Duke notes internally that his favorability level has not appeared for her yet. They sit in a quiet, sunlit room, observing one another in a moment of silent assessment. He confidently states that he's sure she wouldn't fall in love with Marquis Montpellier's. He leans in close, his presence suddenly intense as he places a hand near her shoulder. Thump, her heart beats wildly as they gaze into each other's eyes, mere inches apart. Astaroth remarks that he seems to have suffered, while privately vowing not to fall for his tricks twice. He calmly reveals he knows she has a lover, stunning Astaroth into utter disbelief as she demands to know how. He asks if she pities him now, and she begrudgingly admits to herself that she does. A vision shows him in the future as a knight, becoming a key part of her unsuspecting army. He observes that she must possess great loyalty to the kingdom. Astaroth asks what he means, and he clarifies their shared goals. He wants to protect his property, while she wants the throne. Sipping his tea, the Duke declares that this arrangement will be enough for him for now. Astaroth decides she has no choice but to go along with his plan for the time being. He cryptically adds that he longs for the concealed starlight of Holstein, leaving her confused. The young Duke of Granada sits demurely, surrounded by a soft aura of pink roses. A faint blush dusts his cheeks as his golden eyes shine with a newfound emotion. Her own brilliant eyes widen in shock at his unexpected display of vulnerability. Whoosh! A powerful, unseen energy suddenly flares up, filling the room with a tense purple aura. A system window reveals Archduke Holstein's children's safety control skill has just been activated. She gasps in alarm while the Duke thinks that this happened without his knowledge. Her father, Archduke Holstein, appears and coldly asks if they have a guest, as his favorability towards the Duke plummets. Noah Astarte panics as the marriage proposal slips from her grasp and flutters toward the floor. Her father sweeps her into his arms, protectively holding her as he spots the document and asks what it is. He examines the marriage contract with a grim expression while clutching his daughter tightly. Stomp! The young Duke steps forward defiantly, announcing that he and Astaroth have pledged their future together. He formally addresses the Archduke, asking for his blessing to allow their marriage. The Archduke is horrified, his mind reeling as he looks from the proposal to his young daughter. Crash! Overwhelmed, her father collapses and she screams his name as the Duke rushes to help. Later, Astarte stands beside the king as he calmly works at his desk. The king looks up from his papers, stating he is sure that no one forced her into this decision. Realizing her youth is an excuse to force her father to remarry, she resolves to protect him herself, a decision the king observes with a sharp gaze. The king gently pats her head, a soft, affectionate light filling the room. He looks at her with pride, remarking on how much she has grown. A system notification confirms the success of the Vow of Love subquest, increasing her gravity stat. She boldly addresses the king, offering herself as a candidate for the throne. The king closes his eyes with a knowing smile, realizing this was her true objective all along. He recalls how King Rodrigo never wanted him to face this difficult political world alone after his brothers were gone. Marquis of Montpellier is shown to have exploited this situation, turning royal politics into a painful ordeal. She remembers her past life of desperately asking for help and trying to escape a cruel fate. The memory of her miserable end facing the guillotine haunts her. Resolved, she declares she will no longer entrust her fate to others, successfully completing 2 major quests. A voice from her grand estate muses that they didn't expect her to choose the young Duke of Granada. Astarte gazes out over the palace gardens from a balcony, her expression determined. With the king beside her, she explains her choice. They cannot allow their greatest ally to fall into the hands of the nobles. The king looks at her thoughtfully, prompting her to continue by asking, and the king stands behind Astolat, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. He warns her that a ruler's life is full of schemes, slander, and resentment from others. With a serious expression, he asks if she still truly wishes to become the king. Astolat looks up at him, her golden eyes burning with unwavering determination. He agrees to grant her wish, and she gratefully thanks his majesty. A gleaming golden crown rests upon a royal blue cushion, radiating a divine light. As the crown is placed on her head, he reminds her of her noble royal blood. Now crowned, Astolat stands with a regal and resolute expression, surrounded by flowers. She inwardly notes that this is the perfect opportunity to restore the royal family's dignity. The new main quest appears, a King's Qualifications 2, requiring her to pass the annual King's exam with at least a rank A to survive and save her father. Standing on the balcony overlooking the gardens, the king asks what she believes is a king's greatest quality. She thoughtfully answers that it is to protect the ones they hold dear. A warm memory surfaces of a younger, pink-haired man lovingly holding a small child. Poof! Astolat appears in a new uniform as a system window announces the Sword Trial 1 subquest, requiring her to level up her swordsmanship skills. She recalls her ancestor, Queen Lydia II, a legendary war hero, resolving to become strong enough to meet the king's standards. The king looks down from the balcony in confusion, his attention drawn to a commotion below. Astolat leans over the railing in shock, wondering what is happening in the courtyard. Now equipped with binoculars, she joins the king in observing the scene below. Tap tap. She rushes through the halls with her maid, insisting she isn't worried about Ryan. Hiya! She arrives just as the pink-haired boy, her young father, swings his training sword at Ryan. She shouts for her dad as she witnesses a memory of him fiercely sparring with young Ryan. In the flashback, she tells her young father that the king is looking for him, interrupting his training session. Her father angrily scolds a teary-eyed Ryan, leaving Astolat to facepalm in embarrassment. As her father runs off, she and a disheartened Ryan are left standing alone. Ryan sighs, telling her he had no other choice in the matter. She apologizes, admitting it must be awkward to deal with her father, who she calls a fool for his daughter. A glowing vision of Ryan appears, looking noble and resolute amidst a shower of flowers. She glances at him, a faint blush dusting her cheeks as she watches him. A blue-haired young man suddenly appears and formally greets Lady Astolat. Startling her, he introduces himself as Dionith, a knight assigned by the king to be her swordsmanship instructor. The royal knights are typically composed of children from noble families. It reveals Dionith's difficult past. He was a commoner adopted by the knight commander and was severely bullied for years. Astolat announces she will begin her training today, though she worries it's a little late. Facing her new instructor, she eagerly accepts the challenge with a resounding yes! Dionith places a practice sword in her hand, gravely reminding her that a sword is a weapon meant to take a life. She grips the sword with a serious expression, ready to begin her training under his watch. He vows to take her training seriously, regardless of her status as the Grand Duchess. Astolat flashes a confident, bright smile, fully prepared for the rigorous training ahead. Ouch. The sound echoes from the training grounds as the sun sets over the palace. Exhausted from her first day, Astolat collapses onto her bed, while her maid tends to her aching feet. She wipes sweat from her brow, admitting that the basic training was far more grueling than she'd imagined. A worried maid suggests that perhaps the princess should wait until she is older to begin such strenuous training. Astolat reflects that the first year was merely a tutorial, and time has flown by. Lying on her bed and staring at the ceiling, she realizes with a sense of urgency that she doesn't have much time. She calls out to Ryan, who is sitting nearby reading a book, causing him to look up in surprise. He notes that she looks unwell, and she admits the training was more intense than she expected. Ryan informs her they are both on the agenda for today's cabinet meeting, leaving her stunned. He reveals he was planning to sneak in and asks if she thinks she can do it. They sit in a grand, sunlit room as he proposes his plan to sneak into the cabinet meeting. She looks at several items on the table and asks what they are. Ryan holds up a medicated patch, explaining that it's called Paz. He gently applies the cooling patch to her sore arm. A wave of relief washes over her as she floats in a state of bliss. Holding a patch, she looks at a smiling Ryan, who is relieved it worked. As she reaches for his shoulder, he blushes intensely and covers his face. Pat pat. After she applies the patch, she tells him to face her, and he turns back with a shy expression. Astaroth sits confidently, bathed in a radiant golden light. He explains his plan is just a precaution, in case she gets caught sneaking in. She smiles, realizing his true intentions were to protect her. He sits in contemplation as a notification suggests the favorability system may not work on him since he's not a playable character. This means she can't read his heart, leaving her to wonder what thoughts he's been hiding. Ryan asks if she's ready to go, reminding her a dress won't work for sneaking in, and she confidently agrees. She proudly presents her disguise, a perfect maid's uniform. With a cheerful expression, she asks for his opinion on her new look. Now both ready, they stand together in the grand room, prepared for their mission. She privately wonders if it's possible he's interested in her without her being able to tell. Tap, tap, tap. Ryan peeks around a corner, confirming the coast is clear, and they proceed down the hall. They stand by a waiting carriage as the night deepens around them. Inside the carriage, she reveals her alibi. She's trusted Mina to create one, showing a disguised Mina looking terrified. Ryan astutely asks if he was her originally planned partner, and she realizes he's caught on. She admits to herself that he was a good choice, handsome from a great family, and not aiming for the throne. He observes that their marriage will be an issue for the nobles and warns that things are about to become more distressing. She and Ryan sit opposite each other, the mood in the carriage turning serious. He admits it's a great comfort to have someone on his side with the same goal. Bathed in moonlight, she smiles softly, deciding she is willing to trust him. The scene shifts to a grand, illuminated estate at twilight. The king, a man with light pink hair, stands before his royal court. Peeking through a window, they overhear the king announce his plan to marry Astolat to the Duke of Granada, shocking the nobles. The nobles protest vehemently, arguing the Duke is too young and lacking in knowledge for such a union. As Astaroth listens intently, a sharp voice suddenly demands to know who is there. Whoosh! She's pulled away from the window, landing softly in a bed of flowers with a man. She quickly places a finger on his lips, urging him to hide for a moment. The man says he didn't expect to find the little star here as Astaroth's eyes widen. A voice interrupts them. It's Marquis Montpellier, who coldly asks what she is doing there. Marquis mocks her for playing hide and seek, revealing his son Cedric had called her wise, but he now disagrees. Astaroth decides to face him with maximum boldness. The Marquis questions her maid disguise, and she worries her lies aren't working due to her low favorability with him. He demands to know what she was discussing with the young duke, then feigns a reassuring tone, claiming not to be her enemy. A system window reveals the Marquis is trying to read her mind. The defense fails, giving him access for 2 minutes. Under the force of his mental attack, she realizes her defense is still too low, and that they know the law of destruction. A blank, stunned expression washes over her face as his mind-reading skill takes hold. To block him, she floods her thoughts with random desires for chicken and cake, and compliments for her father. Suddenly, the thought of marriage flashes in her mind, catching the Marquis completely by surprise. A confused Marquis momentarily thinks of his own son Cedric at the mention of marriage. Astaroth's thoughts drift to a vision of the handsome, blonde-haired Cedric, rumored to be very good-looking. She imagines a future where she marries Cedric and takes the crown, a thought that makes her heart race before she dismisses it. Marquis, mistaking her thoughts for genuine feelings for his son, is deeply moved and vows to convey her wishes. A pink-haired girl in a maid's dress panics about losing her skills, realizing it proves she deceived Montpellier. The long-haired duke declares they should act immediately and turns to leave. The girl grabs his cloak, frantically trying to explain the situation. The dark-haired boy takes her hand, softly saying her name, Astolat. In her thoughts, a tiny version of Astolat asks if he is mad. She internally denies having any attachment to Montpellier. Astolat clarifies that she's angry at her own helplessness. She thinks about how strong he is and how there's nothing she can do. Smash. The boy punches a stone wall, cracking it, as she thinks there's still time. She stares in shock as he reveals their opponent already knows their plans. She pinches his cheek, telling him to control himself. Astolat points toward a guarded gate, proposing they go inside. Waking from her memory, she feels this is the best time. The boy takes her hand and they run, her fear lessening with him by her side. In a grand hall, Marquis Montpellier suggests the king shouldn't limit his marriage options. Astolat, now in a formal black dress, and the boy Ryan enter the hall hand in hand. A nobleman panics at their intrusion, demanding the king remove the children from the state council meeting. Standing before the throne, Astolat declares that her future partner must prove their worthiness to join the royal family. Ryan steps forward, asking for a chance to prove Grenada can govern itself. The king listens thoughtfully as council members whisper in panic about Princess Floria's absence. Marquis Montpellier and his retinue stand before the two children. The Marquise compliments Astolat as a talented star while secretly sneering at her ambition to become a duchess. A stylized image shows the Marquis giving a charming wink and a thumbs up. Roi Astolat is utterly horrified by his duplicitous behavior. Composing herself, Astolat puts on a sweet and innocent smile. The Marquis dismisses Ryan, asking what is wrong with the little duke. Astolat and Ryan stand together, facing the court. They look up in unison, shocked, as the Marquis thinks he's already hooked on her. Astolat is confused by his sudden change in demeanor, thinking he's a surprisingly good actor. As a courtier calls Ryan too young and announces Princess Floria's arrival, Ryan loudly declares that the one he likes is Astolat. Stunned by his public confession, Astolat instinctively wraps her arms around him. The king remarks that Ryan's words were harsh, prompting the boy to apologize. The Marquis laughs as Astolat cheekily asks how it feels for his plans to be disrupted by her and Ryan. Annoyed, Marquis Montpellier's favorability drops. Astolat's cheeky brat skill activates as she wonders about becoming the heir. Astolat stands tall, proclaiming that no matter a noble's authority, a mere marquis should not interfere in royal affairs, causing Montpellier's favorability to drop again. System notifications announce the end of her skill and its subsequent level up. Defeated, Marquis Montpellier gives Astolat a slight bow of acknowledgement. The king orders the matter dropped for now, commanding no further disruptions. A nobleman agrees as Astolat and Ryan stand victorious before the empty throne. Yay! They celebrate their success with an enthusiastic high five. Astolat nearly trips, catching herself in a hurry. The king stands before them in a fiery aura, inviting them to start talking to him. Later that night, Astar is told she can go home for the day. As she waits for her carriage, she's told the duke will speak with her later, and she worries about the outcome. Really, the next day dawns bright and sunny over the grand estate. On a balcony, Ryan explains to Astolat that a regent will be appointed if he's gone for a year. He wonders if he can return to the hunting competition next year, and Astolat quietly mulls over the idea. Ryan stands before her, formally offering his hand. He pulls her into a sudden dance, dipping her as she lets out a small cry of surprise. He playfully snatches the large red bow from her hair, leaving her to wonder why. Her final thought lingers, "So I don't miss you so much." A vision of Ryan appears, looking resolute in his formal attire. He gently pats a younger Astolat's head in a tender memory. With a determined stride, he walks away through a grand archway. Astolat watches him leave, her expression filled with longing. From the balcony, she shouts goodbye, promising she'll miss him too. Her perspective shifts to a grand, purple-hued arena as she wonders if this is the final exam. 1 year later, an older, more elegant Astolat appears, ready for what's to come. She gasps with excitement upon receiving a formal, wax-sealed letter. With a serious expression, she opens and reads the important message. A look of determination settles on her face as she absorbs the letter's contents. Her father appears, proudly telling her it's her final exam. She sadly thinks about Ryan's absence on exam day, which sends her father into a sudden rage. He comforts her, admitting he dislikes Ryan, and she looks up at him with concern. She takes his hand, insisting she must protect him first and asking for his trust. Her words finally calm him down as he looks at her with softened eyes. He pulls her into a warm, reassuring embrace. The scene shifts to a vast and brilliant coliseum, the site of the exam. Astolat stands in the center of the arena, facing her instructor, Dianeth. Dianeth commends her for her hard work over the past year. She looks around the empty arena and asks who her opponent will be. Dianeth stands ready with a practice sword, revealing himself as her challenger. Stunned, Astolat realizes she has to fight her own master, Dianeth. From the royal box, her father watches with a worried expression, murmuring her name. Astolat's shock is visible on her face as she processes the situation. A sudden arrival in the stands catches her eye. It's Ryan, waving cheerfully. Inspired, she grips her sword, ready to show her fiancé her newfound strength. Tap tap. She lunges forward, charging directly at Dianeth. Swat. He effortlessly deflects her swing with his armored hand. Clang. He blocks her next strike, crossing their wooden swords. Diana looks down at her with a confident smirk. Unimpressed, a fiery determination burns in Astolat's eyes as she glares back at him. Whoosh. Dianeth's eyes glow as he unleashes his power, exclaiming, "Oh my!" Pow! With a single powerful strike, he shatters her sword and sends her reeling. Defeated, Astolat kneels on the ground, her broken sword lying before her. Dianeth coolly tells her to give up. But she refuses, lunging forward with her broken hilt. He dodges and catches her in a hold from behind. In a flash, she twists around, pressing the sharp end of her broken sword to his throat. The king looks on as Astolat sits triumphantly atop the defeated Dianeth. She stands and flashes a bright, victorious smile. She reveals her tactic, making him lower his guard by feigning defeat. Dianeth gets to his feet and formally announces that she has passed the level test. As he looks down at her, she silently wonders about his unreadable expression. She stands apart from him and offers a formal thank you. A system message reveals his favorability has finally increased after a year of few compliments. Pouting, she thinks she still has a long way to go, recalling how he laughed at her posture. His favorability suddenly jumps to 45, shocking her as he asks what she just said. She quickly covers her mouth, realizing she misjudged him completely. Dianeth offers his hand, and she accepts it, a new understanding blooming between them. She realizes she no longer needs something now that she has the numbers. A voice insists she must catch 3 prey to protect the royal family's honor. Hayek! Dianeth declares he will train her more intensely, shocking Astolat as her father watches. In her new hunting attire, she notes how different it is to finally participate instead of just watching. Her eyes widen as she looks up at a man in a formal uniform. A handsome, dark-haired boy in a red-lined cape smiles and waves at her. He beams at her as he suddenly appears. Whoosh! She lunges at him in a fiery rage, shouting, "Hey, you bastard!" He effortlessly catches her, stopping her attack and leaving her stunned. As she stares in shock, he looks down at her with a gentle expression. He pulls her into a tight embrace, telling her he missed her too. Squishing his face, she playfully calls him a coward for getting so tall. Her playful mood vanishes as she asks worriedly about his majesty. The dark-haired boy stands calmly before her, ready to answer. A vision of Astolat as a crowned queen appears as he explains her father's questions about a male consort's role, referencing her legendary ancestor, Ava. He recounts the history of Prince Albert, who managed state affairs while the monarch was at war. He proposes a plan for their future. They will delegate their duties until their children are born, which she confirms. His words leave her utterly shocked and speechless. Her world turns upside down with this new revelation. The dark-haired boy watches her reaction with a knowing look. He asks if she was born that way too, causing her to hide her face and deny its importance. She anxiously asks if he revealed their secret to the king. He smiles, admitting he almost died, and that her father truly cares for her. They stand together, looking toward a beautiful garden archway, in a moment of quiet understanding. "No, your majesty, that is all for now." The two walk side by side through the gardens, engaged in a serious conversation. The dark-haired boy appears pensive and lost in thought. Now before the king, the boy from Granada is thanked for his family's loyalty. The Duke of Granada bows respectfully, and thanks the king. The king suggests betrothing a woman named Floria to the Granada family instead. The Duke recalls the fierce opposition to the previous engagement plan between Asta and Jane. He argues that marrying Floria is more strategic for managing the territory than marrying Asta. He stands resolute, having made his unexpected case to the king. The king is left completely bewildered by the Duke's proposal. The Duke's golden eyes shine with determination. His formal military uniform is shown in detail. The king stands abruptly, shocked and agitated by the Duke's words. Recalling the moment, the Duke explains he will leave his territory to subordinates, prompting a stunned king to ask what he just said. Back in the present, Astolat notes that he wasn't there, implying this all happened while he was away. He confidently states that catching 3 pieces of game should be easy for her now. She recalls that the hunting competition is a quest where Marquis Montpellier plans to assassinate her father. Astolat looks completely exhausted by the weight of their discussion. Her weary expression gives way to a look of steely determination. Memory shows them strategizing together over a map. He explains that the hunting competition is the perfect cover to lead someone to a secluded place. With a determined gaze, she listens to his warning about being careful of Duke Halsatane. In another memory, he points to a map, suggesting a plan based on the seating arrangement. Her eyes widen as he whispers his secret plan into her ear. A spark of understanding ignites in her glowing eyes. Didim! Their plan is set in motion as she leaps through the air during the competition. A handsome, pink-haired boy looks on with surprise. Whoosh! He catches Astolat in a graceful swoop, asking why his little star is acting this way. Looking down at her worried expression, he asks if she's anxious about the hunting competition. Astolat touches her lip, thinking that someone named Flora seems to be angry with her. In a cute fantasy, she imagines herself with cat ears. She recalls how Ryan used to have private meetings with her sister at a similar camp. The pink-haired boy boldly declares that Asta's request is far more important than his own participation. Seated next to a blonde woman, he announces that Asta will take his place in the competition. From afar, Astolat beams with excitement, thinking it's a great idea. She peeks around a corner, pointing excitedly toward the gathering. The pink-haired boy waves back, just as someone off-screen gasps, the Duke. A formidable man with long white hair and a stern expression makes his entrance. Astolat slyly peeks at the Duke, a mischievous glint in her eyes. The Duke's intense, blue-eyed gaze sweeps over the scene. In a cute chibi moment, Astolat admires the Duke's appearance, while the pink-haired boy wishes him a safe return. A tender moment is shared as 2 hands clasp against a forest backdrop. A blue-haired man kneels before Astolat, gently warning her to back away from large animals. He explains that meeting their gaze could make them see her as prey. He holds her gloved hand, his gaze serious and focused. An inner voice reflects that this part of him hasn't changed at all. Now in full armor, the blue-haired man vows his desire to be of help to her. A system window explains that Dionysus understands loneliness due to his background. In a vision of the future, he kneels before a grown Astolat. She thought he could understand her pain. The beautiful vision is reflected upside down, revealing it was just her own delusion. A harsh realization hits her. His kindness was only a product of a threat. A flashback reveals the Marquis holding a knife to a man's throat to control Dionysus. In a painful memory, Dionysus watches Astolat's silhouette, apologizing to her in his thoughts. Back in the present, he checks her equipment, and she assures him it's fine. Astolat quietly wonders if Dionysus is being threatened even now. She hardens her heart, deciding it doesn't matter either way. With renewed focus, she realizes there will be no more help this time. Bathed in a holy light, Astolat stands with her sword, declaring she will become the king. An unseen announcer thanks everyone for attending the event. Astolat stands confidently at the front line with Dionysus and another hunter. A burly, reddish-haired man officially addresses the participants. With confident smirk, Astolat readies herself for the hunt. The booming announcement declares the start of the hunting competition. Astride her horse, she eagerly shouts, "Let's go!" As she and Ryan ride off, a magnificent stag dashes through the sun-dappled forest. The hunting party gallops in pursuit of the fleeing prey. The pink-haired boy shouts an order to chase after Dionysus' target. Ryan signals to the other hunters, telling them to go find their own prey. Astolat and Ryan ride together at the head of the pack, focused on the path ahead. A system window appears, issuing a subquest. Hunt 3 animals in under 5 hours. The rules are harsh, no help from NPCs, and failure means a year of confinement. Her eyes widen in panic as she realizes the quest has started now. Reining in her horse, She urgently calls for Ryan to wait. She firmly tells him she has changed her mind and must complete the quest alone. Ryan looks back, confused, asking if he can't help her at all. With a determined gaze, Astolat prepares to ride on by herself. The dark-haired boy, Ryan, looks onward with a serious expression. He turns, surprised to find Astolat standing before him. She declares they'll just have to try and see. Astolat ponders their situation, a nervous sweat drop on her cheek. Nodding, she admits she'd be bitter if someone stole her prey. Haha. Her expression brightens with a sudden, brilliant idea. With a confident grin, she asks Ryan if they should give it a try. An arrow flies through the air, aimed squarely at a stag. Ryan runs forward with a confident smirk. Acha. In a flash, Astolat dashes past the beast, brandishing a glowing dagger. A moment of peace settles over the sun-drenched forest. Ryan stops in his tracks, panting in utter shock. Astolat stands calmly over the downed stag, her hunt successful. She and Ryan turn to each other with triumphant smiles, exclaiming they did it. In a cute chibi moment, Ryan cheers for Asta, praising her for skillfully stealing the prey. Asta gives him a warm, knowing smile. Ryan beams, his eyes closed in a happy smile. As she turns to look for more prey, he suddenly grabs her hand. They stand hand in hand, sharing a serious, unspoken moment. She breaks the tension with a bright smile and 2 thumbs up, exclaiming, of course. Ryan looks back at her, his expression one of slight surprise. She gives another confident thumbs up, a thought beginning to form. In a flashback, a younger Ryan stands resolutely before the king. Ryan explains to a shocked Astolat that her parents also told him a certain story. A narrator reveals the love story of the Duke and Duchess of Holstein is famous. A vision of a bound woman contrasts with Astolat, who reflects that she has never experienced a love worth risking one's life for. Fuming before a portrait of her parents, Astolat realizes the adults were plotting behind her back. In a chibi memory, she tells Ryan she wants to be friends with the impressive Dionysus. A woman in a simple blue dress looks out over a garden. The thought continues that no matter the affection, one must settle for second place. Astolat insists to a blushing Ryan that his feelings aren't love. She turns away, a troubled and pained expression on her face. As Ryan watches her, a narrator notes he is still just a child, despite her countless regressions. Looking back at him, Astolat thinks that she feels a little sorry. Her expression hardens with resolve, a blush creeping onto her cheeks. Standing on her toes, she gives a startled Ryan a quick kiss on the cheek. The tender moment lingers between them in the sunlit forest. A close-up shows Ryan's wide, stunned eyes. Blushing furiously, he touches the spot on his cheek where she kissed him. He earnestly asks if she still can't trust his heart, but she quickly assures him she does. Overjoyed that Astar kissed him, Ryan agrees they should go. The scene transitions to a peaceful path deeper in the woods. They walk side by side through the forest, continuing their hunt. Astolat throws her hands up in frustration, wondering where all the animals are. She laments that after catching 2 animals, she can't find a single one more. Ryan explains that the others have taken them all, prompting her to ask what they should do. Suddenly, a voice shouts, "Astolat!" startling them both. It's Dionysus, who calls out from atop his horse, asking if she's there. Ryan turns to Astolat and asks what her plan is now. She decides to go further into the woods, though Ryan warns her it's very dangerous. The dark-haired boy Ryan shouts Astolat's name in alarm. With a determined look, Ryan tells himself that he'll be fine. With a bright smile, Astolat assures him she'll be back soon, and runs off. Ha! Ryan sighs, exasperated by her departure. Sword in hand, Astolat runs through the woods, confident she won't get lost this way. The scene transitions to a serene, sunlit lake surrounded by forest. Astolat cautiously peeks out from behind a large tree. The wind rustles as she wonders if prey has appeared, just as a blonde-haired man in the distance calls out, "Astolat." The blonde-haired man approaches, telling the crouched Astolat he's been looking for her for a long time. Astolat's expression hardens with suspicion against an intense, fiery background. The blonde-haired man stands over her, his figure framed by a mysterious blue aura. Annoyed, Astolat glances at a system window, reminding herself that the mission takes priority. The blonde-haired man observes her with a knowing smirk, stating that she doesn't understand the situation. Looking at her system window, Astolat thinks she's safe from assassination under the king's protection. A cute chibi thought bubble shows the man raising his sword to strike a terrified Astolat as she wonders where she is. Ah, A notification reveals she's within a 1-kilometer radius of King Rodrigo, and she gasps in shock. The blonde-haired man smiles peacefully, announcing that he now understands the situation. Astolat dashes away as the man yells, "Ayo!" Peeking around a tree, she gives him a cheeky grin and says, "Bye, idiot." Her triumphant escape is cut short as she trips and falls. As the man rushes toward her with his sword, a massive scarred bear suddenly appears, stopping them both in their tracks. They stand frozen, dwarfed by the immense creature before them. The blonde-haired man draws a dagger, shielding a terrified Astolat. The enormous bear lets out a ferocious roar. Overwhelmed by fear, they both scream in unison. With a powerful swipe, the bear sends the blonde-haired man flying. The menacing bear turns its attention to its remaining prey. Looking back at the downed man, Astolat thinks with dread, "I'm ruined." The bear looms over her, ready to attack as she lets out a terrified scream. As the bear roars in pain, it's clear it has been struck by an unseen projectile. Ryan suddenly appears, catching a surprised Astolat as they call out each other's names. They both turn their heads, startled by the sudden arrival of help. Dionysus charges in on his horse, calling out to Astar to see if she's okay. Facing the beast, Dionysus tells the two to run while he creates a distraction. Ryan grabs Astolat's hand, shouting for them to go. While Ryan urges her to hurry, Astolat realizes with horror that Dionysus will die if they abandon him. She wrenches her hand free from Ryan's grasp. Without hesitation, she sprints toward the danger. She leaps through the air, determined to intervene. The world turns upside down from her perspective as she flies through the air towards the chaotic scene. With fierce resolve, Astolat continues her mid-air dash. A blue system window materializes before her, causing her a moment of confusion. The enraged bear bellows, its fury now absolute. Ryan pleads for Astra to wait, but she defiantly shouts back that she won't move. Astolat raises her sword to draw the bear's attention, while Dionysus plays a flute and Ryan runs forward. The bear pivots, its menacing gaze now locked onto Astolat. Dionysus looks on in horror, screaming, "Number." Astolat pulls back a slingshot, aiming with intense focus. Thwack! The projectile hits its mark with a powerful impact. A shocked Ryan rushes toward Astolat as she raises her sword, asking what she thinks she's doing. A blue-haired man panics, yelling for them to avoid something at all costs. A ferocious bear, with a scarred eye, charges through the forest. Clanga's sword sharply parries a powerful blow. The bear barrels towards a dark-haired boy shielding the pink-haired girl, Asta. The boy stares in shock, his sword raised defensively. Whack! With a determined cry, Asta swings her own weapon. The bear swipes at the blue-haired man, who throws his hands up in terror. Asta gasps, her eyes wide with shock at the sudden turn of events. Ashi screams as she's thrown back into a tree, a critical hit notification appearing. The enraged bear continues its furious charge through the woods. A large glowing blue symbol materializes in the sky. The scene briefly flashes to the green canopy of the forest. As she and the boy stand ready, a system notification announces only 10 seconds are left. Wiping her brow, Asta realizes she can't accomplish her goal in just 10 seconds. The boy shouts, "Astar!" as she stumbles, while someone else questions what she is doing. Confused, she pauses on all fours, looking around inquisitively. A hand reaches down as a system window awards her an achievement for catching a bear at age 11. Amidst a shower of celebratory sparkles, she triumphantly rides the now tamed bear. The dark-haired boy looks away, flustered and blushing at her unbelievable feat. He reaches out to her, thinking her actions were far too dangerous. Standing before her, he looks both worried and exasperated. Asta reflects on their dangerous path, realizing desire is useless without the power to achieve it. He gently rests his hand on her forehead, his expression soft with concern. He pulls her into an embrace, admitting he couldn't have succeeded without her. The boy calls her name as the blue-haired man, Dionysus, reappears, dragged by a tree, and angrily questions their actions. Dionysus yells his approval as a pink-haired man watches them from a distance. The pink-haired man shouts that the two children are fine. He suddenly appears before Asta, who asks why he's there. He explains he was worried after receiving a report about suspicious people, but she seems unconvinced. In reality, she recalls, a killer had threatened her as the man stands with his royal guard. She silently vows not to let him get his way so easily. She points confidently, accusing someone of being the most likely murderer, shocking an unseen listener. Asta dramatically announces that Dionys was near a death threat, stunning the older man. She stands silently for a moment, trying to process the unfolding situation. Enraged, the pink-haired man yells at Dionys for disobeying his order to escort Asta. Someone thinks that they have never seen him this angry before. As the protection of the king activates, she knows admitting she deviated will weaken its effect. She stands between the two men, Dionys looking on in shock. Asta watches the confrontation with a deeply troubled expression. Dionys promises to tell her everything honestly. Asta quickly stops him, worried he'll lose the king's protection, and admits she's greedy for achievements. She holds her hand up decisively, stopping his confession. As Dionys resolves to accept his punishment, Asta gasps, covering her mouth in shock. She thinks she can't weigh her own goals against the loyalty of someone who risked his life for her. Stepping forward, she defends Dionys and claims she wanted to earn her achievements alone. She takes the blame, insisting that she is the one who deserves punishment. The pink-haired man looks down at her, his expression unreadable. He concludes that leaving her alone was a mistake, but she shouts her disagreement. As he sentences Dionys for disobeying the Emperor's orders, Asta grabs his arm and cries out, "Your Majesty!" In a cute, simplified drawing, the three of them stand together, completely bewildered by the situation. In a flashback, the king summons Lord Dionysus. The king entrusts Dionysus with Astolat's safety, stating he trusts his loyalty. The king looks on with a grave and resolute expression. Vowing to protect her, Dionysus respectfully lowers his head. Back in the present, Astolat sighs with relief in the forest. The king suddenly appears, calling out to a surprised Astolat. Looking serious, the king thinks that he won't hand his position over to such a person. With a weary expression, Astolat thinks she'll keep that in mind. The king praises her, noting that though her methods were wrong, the results were amazing. He gently pats her head, lecturing that process is as important as the result. With a hearty laugh, the king effortlessly hoists the giant bear onto his shoulders. Astolat watches in wide-eyed shock as the king carries the bear away. Astolat walks over to Dionysus, hesitantly calling his name. He asks how she could do such a reckless thing, and she apologizes for being hasty. With piercing eyes, she insists that her haste wasn't the real reason. Kneeling before him, she earnestly declares that she just couldn't let him die. Dionysus lets out a soft sigh as she looks on with concern. Ding! A system window announces Knight Dionysus' favorability has increased by 15 points. Astolat covers her mouth, stunned by the notification. Dionysus thinks to himself that calling him a friend is too much. Her face lights up with a brilliant idea as she realizes the implication. She unlocks a new skill, the Knight's Guardian, as a blushing Dionysus kneels, overwhelmed by the development. He looks down, his expression serious despite his flushed cheeks. The scene shifts to the awards ceremony, where servants prepare for the announcements. An official announces that Count Hunter has won 3rd place. 2nd place is awarded to Lord Isval Montpellier, the illegitimate but highly skilled son of a marquis. 2 noblewomen gossip nearby, speculating that the marquis planned for him to win. The announcer builds suspense before revealing the 1st place winner. The crowd murmurs, buzzing with anticipation for the final result. Astolat is declared the winner, revealed sitting triumphantly atop the slain bear, stunning the onlookers. The king smiles proudly, arms crossed in satisfaction. Astolat gracefully kneels before the king to accept her prize. A long-haired man with a white goatee watches from the crowd, his expression grim. Astolat gives credit to her great teacher. She gleefully pulls a happy Ryan into a celebratory side hug. Ryan thanks her and admits he tried to avoid Dionysus, but she credits his own fighting spirit. They exchange a quiet, meaningful glance. A chibi king tells a flustered, pink-haired boy to give up, seeing how much Ryan and Astolat like each other. The king explains that the winner gets one wish and asks Astolat what she desires. Bathed in golden light, Astolat stands ready to make her wish. The pink-haired young man and others look on anxiously as the king stands with arms crossed. Astolat smiles, her eyes shining with confidence and joy. The scene transitions as a question hangs in the air and a carriage driver looks startled. In the carriage, the pink-haired boy frets that he might become too overprotective of her. Astolat dismisses his worries, explaining she only wanted to protect her father and didn't anticipate an assassin. He looks out the window, deciding it's still too early for her to understand. The two sit in contemplative silence during their ride. A formal portrait of the king depicts his stern and regal authority. Later, the king admits to the pink-haired boy and Astolat that her being in danger was a great shock. Astolat sits quietly, listening intently to the conversation. Astolat and the pink-haired young man gasp in surprise. The two look on with concern as the king's stern portrait hangs nearby. Astolat closes her eyes, a serene but determined expression on her face. The pink-haired young man turns, protesting to his brother. The king questions what she will accomplish by hiding and running away. Astolat sits quietly on the pink-haired young man's lap. The king thoughtfully strokes his chin, lost in thought. The scene transitions to a grand, sunlit manor. A line of smiling servants welcomes them home, one holding a beautiful bouquet. Astolat stands in the doorway, stunned by the warm reception. Her golden eyes sparkle with pure joy and surprise. As they walk, a maid asks if Astolat is going to the Grand Duke, which she confirms is the final hurdle. Astolat asks if the maid retrieved what she requested, and the maid confirms she will bring it to the palace. The pink-haired young man stands alone in a sun-drenched room, looking out the window. He turns with a serious and contemplative expression. Astolat looks up, her expression suddenly startled. The young man says he knows she was aiming for the top, as Astolat thinks he will never understand her true goal is to protect everyone. When he asks what she means, she poses a question about the easiest target for a nobleman aiming for the throne, the king's children, and then suggests he would kill them and their guardian, leaving him speechless. They stand across from each other in the opulent, sunlit room. Astolat shocks him by suggesting they give up the succession, explaining that without it, no one will have a reason to target them. He looks down at her, imagining her questioning the fate of their family. She looks up at him and firmly states that she loves her father more. Her brother looks at her, taken aback by her heartfelt declaration. He apologizes, feeling he shouldn't have made her worry so much at her age. She rushes forward and hugs his leg, tearfully expressing her relief that he is safe. Holding her, he thinks about how small and light she still is. He lifts her into his arms, feeling that somehow he is the adult in this moment. She asks for his help in finding out what the nobles are thinking, and despite his opposition to her challenge, he promises to help Asta with all his might. Her brother thinks with a blush that he has good feelings for him, but worries about a potential breakup and the painful gossip that would follow. Astolat sits confidently, declaring that she is fine with her path because it was her choice. Her brother looks at her with a quiet, understanding gaze. Gently stroking her hair, he thinks that Asta is surprisingly much like his mother. He places his hand firmly on the desk. Having made a decision, he announces he will respect Asta's feelings and help her aim for the throne, causing her to smile warmly. He raises a finger to make a point, and she happily thanks him, promising to keep his trust. A horse-drawn carriage departs from the estate. Astolat stands in awe before the magnificent, towering royal palace. She thinks to herself that she didn't expect this moment to arrive so soon. A grand title card announces their arrival at the royal palace. Sunlight glints off the majestic white walls of the palace. Astolat and her maid proceed down a long, ornate hallway. Suddenly, a blonde-haired woman in a green dress sweeps a surprised Astolat into her arms. Astolat looks up with wide, happy eyes at the woman holding her. The blonde woman hugs her tightly, overjoyed that Asta has finally come. Holding Astolat's cheeks, the blonde woman explains that another person went to the main palace to speak with His Majesty. A cute chibi version of the blonde woman explains that she decorated Asta's room herself as a gift. Astolat's eyes shine with gratitude as she thanks her sister for the beautiful gift. Her sister gently places a vibrant flower crown on her head. The blonde sister gives a surprised Astolat a kiss on the cheek. A system window notifies her that Princess Floria's favorability has increased due to her actions. A blonde woman in a green dress gives a cool sideways glance. A narrator notes that her expression is quite ambiguous. She was first unhappy about her engagement to a man named Ryan. The second time was due to pressure over the right to the throne. She stands with the young, pink-haired Asta in a grand hall. Someone in formal shoes walks forward. Asta looks up at the blonde woman, who turns to face her. Asta flashes a bright, cheerful smile. A young, dark-haired boy in a formal uniform approaches her. He bows politely before Asta and the blonde woman. Asta worries about how their formal interaction appears to others. In a cute fantasy, the boy carries a winged Asta as the woman blows a kiss. Overjoyed, Asta asks if it's really true. She addresses the boy, saying that, of course, first things first. Holding up one finger, she begins to lay out her terms. The scene shifts to a grand, white estate. Over tea, the boy asks Asta why she came here instead of taking a walk. She takes a sly sip of her tea. A knowing look on her face, a blue-haired man suddenly appears, looking startled. Gasping, Asta turns in surprise at his arrival. He apologizes for his casual attire, not expecting her visit. The blue-haired man kneels before the children at their tea table. Asta presents him with an old-looking belt as a gift. Kneeling, he accepts the belt from her with a gentle smile. He looks down at the gift, his eyes wide with surprise and emotion. He carefully examines the intricate belt in his hands. Asta asks if he'll teach her well, while the boy and man look on thoughtfully. The blue-haired man holds the belt, declaring he meant what he said before. Asta clasps her hands, beaming with pure delight. Her eyes suddenly widen in a moment of happy realization. She observes the way he smiles so warmly. The dark-haired boy watches them from a distance, arms crossed and looking annoyed. With a scowl, he turns away from the scene. He states that he understands the sincerity of Lord Dionys. He then tells Astaroth he also has a gift for her. The three of them walk together across a sunlit courtyard. They continue their walk, following Dionys. Asta suddenly stops in her tracks, a look of confusion on her face. They have arrived at a newly discovered secret greenhouse. Sunlight streams into the beautiful, plant-filled interior. Asta looks up in wonder at the magnificent greenhouse. The three stand together, taking in the verdant surroundings. She looks around, thoughtfully, absorbing the atmosphere. Her expression shifts to one of dawning horror and disbelief. An angry shout echoes from within. "How could you do this to me?" The peaceful exterior of the greenhouse belies the drama inside. Inside, a hooded blonde woman confronts a man with long, silver hair. Peeking through the door, Dionys asks who the two people are. The hooded woman cries, covering her face in sorrow. Asta watches the emotional scene with a serious, concerned expression. A flashback begins, recounting the start of a story involving an argument with Floria. In the past, a somber Astaroth walks with a dark-haired boy and a blue-haired young man. She thinks to herself that it's okay, as she has a plan concerning Floria. They arrive at a magnificent glass conservatory, bathed in the light of the setting sun. Inside an opulent room, the three of them sit down together. Astaroth rises, commanding the two young men to listen to her. Surrounded by a green aura, she issues a stern warning about keeping secrets. Her eyes glow an intimidating gold as she unleashes her powerful presence. The two young men are left utterly speechless by her display of power. With blazing eyes, Astaroth presses them, asking if they understand. Her intensity fades as she calmly thinks that a message should be arriving soon. Right on cue, a maid enters the room where the trio is gathered. Astaroth smiles, her plan proceeding exactly as she envisioned. Now wearing an elegant new dress, she makes a grand entrance. She walks through an open doorway as the king watches her from a balcony above. The king calls out her name, Astar. King Rodrigo's favorability has increased. Confused, Astaroth wonders what it means to proceed without any clues. The king explains that since she's tried force, she must now learn politics, leaving her to question his meaning. A new subquest appears, challenging her to learn the knowledge needed to become king. A cute chibi Astaroth happily accepts the challenge from her father. King Rodrigo wonders aloud, who could possibly be her teacher? Astaroth offers a confident and mysterious smile in response. A brief flashback shows a man comforting a crying blonde woman. The memory continues, showing the tearful blonde woman with a silver-haired man. In the present, Astaroth beams, clearly pleased with her choice of teacher. The scene reveals a silver-haired man with glasses named Kai Belbaum standing in a lotus pond. A flashback explains Kai is a genius from a poor area who was warned against a harmful path. After Kai passed a recruitment test, King Rodrigo asked him to be his son's best friend. Despite his low status, the king recognized his potential, and Kai bowed in acceptance. But the narration reveals tragedy struck when Miss Floria fell from a great height. A beautiful portrait depicts the elegant and regal Miss Floria. She and Kai are shown standing apart, separated by their different worlds. A shattered image reveals that their love story was destined for tragedy. Back in the present, Kai stands formally, holding a folder. Astaroth thinks she's surprised he would ask this of her, as he lets out a sigh. In a peaceful garden setting, Kai reads a book intently. A chibi Astaroth comically chases after a chibi Kai, who tries to stop her from digging into the past. Kai looks repulsed as Astaroth cheekily tells him he's not a main character, but a supporting teacher type. He adjusts his glasses, contemplating her words. Astaroth and the dark-haired boy sit attentively at their desks in a classroom. The dark-haired boy begins to offer an observation. Kai coolly cuts him off, stating no observation was requested. Undeterred, the dark-haired boy expresses his keen interest in the class. He confidently tells Astolat not to worry about this area of study. He privately worries that his bad luck now extends to his fiancée as a dark aura emanates from him. Kai stands alone in the vast, sunlit room, engrossed in his book. A tiny, energetic Astolat gets Kai's attention, ready to explain everything. Astolat sighs in frustration, struggling with her writing assignment. The lesson begins with a hypothetical card game between Astolat and Kai involving a king card. Politics is defined as a game to choose the king. Astolat diligently practices her writing at a desk. She thinks to herself that Kai would be a great teacher if he wasn't so sarcastic. 3 hours later, a girl with blonde hair has fallen asleep at her desk from exhaustion. Kai reflects that persuading others is no easy task. Drained from the 3-hour lecture, Astolat thinks this will take longer than expected, as Kai tells her to take things slow. Astolat suddenly stands up, catching the dark-haired boy's attention. She looks up with a bright smile at her sister, Asta. Asta nervously asks if she did well in her class. Astolat hugs her sister, thinking this must be Kai's influence. Asta looks down with a gentle, somewhat somber expression. The two sisters stand together in the ornate, sun-drenched hallway. Asta places her hands on Astolat's shoulders, sharing a moment of understanding. She tenderly caresses Astolat's cheek. Asta apologizes for bothering Astolat and for being rude to the little duke, surprising Asta with the sudden change. Feigning a headache, Astolat clutches her head as the dark-haired boy watches. The dark-haired boy questions if her goal was to bring the princess and teacher closer. He warns her not to play Cupid, thinking their different social statuses make them an impossible match. A chibi Astolat concedes that she knows it's hard. She resolves to find a way to force the two of them to be together. Astolat thinks about the need for a guardian as a chibi Cupid struggles in flames. A devilish grin spreads across her face as she announces she has an idea. The scene shifts to the Grand Throne Room, the center of the country's governance. The history of the State Council is explained, noting how titles were eventually granted to common practitioners. This led to an increase in the number of people who were nobles in name only. The scene reveals that Kai is also one of these new nobles. A pompous nobleman complains about a bad smell in the cabinet office, comparing it to the slums. Astolat sits serenely with her eyes closed as the nobles gossip behind her. A formal portrait of the stern King Rodrigo is shown. A long-haired silver nobleman stands with a poised and confident air. The king sits upon his throne beneath a magnificent crystal chandelier. He presides over the court, with Astolat and the dark-haired boy at his sides. Astolat lets out a weary sigh, feeling the weight of the proceedings. Looking small and frail, she sits with her hands bound by a decorative ribbon. The narration explains that while the emperor leads the meeting, the true power lies elsewhere. The silver-haired nobleman argues for keeping taxes the same due to recent typhoon damage. The king addresses the council, asking if they all agree with the proposal. The narration reveals that the Marquis of Montpellier holds the real power over which bills pass. Astolat's expression becomes serious as the final agenda is announced, the issue of the slums. The king appears weary, resting his head in his hand. A tense silence falls over the entire throne room. The dark-haired boy notices Astolat's foot tapping anxiously. He leans over, asking Asta what's wrong. Suddenly filled with resolve, Astolat sits up straight with a dazzling, confident smile. The king walks down the center of the hall, flanked by the two children. Astolat calls out to her father, her expression filled with urgency. She boldly proposes to investigate the issue herself and draft new laws for the slums. She and the dark-haired boy share a smile, united in her decision. In a desolate region, their carriage stops, and a guard tells Astolat she must descend. As the group assembles, a young blonde girl thinks how happy she is to be with the miss, while Kai thinks he is completely opposed to the outing. Beside a white carriage, Kai adjusts his glasses as a flustered Astolat stands with her hands on her hips. Astolat's eyes widen in disbelief as she asks, "What?" She stares out in shock at the desolate, run-down village before her. The young blonde girl marvels that all the roads in the city have been restored. Kai gestures towards a stone archway, identifying it as the entrance to the marginal neighborhoods. A new hidden mission appears, challenging her to enter the slums by any means. A man in a simple cloak greets the group, remarking that it's been a long time. Kai steps forward, asking the mayor how he's feeling. The mayor states they don't belong, and asks what happens to those who come to die, as text reveals the Queen's decree against discrimination is ignored. Astolat thinks to herself that it's natural for them to fear strangers. She formally introduces herself as Astaroth, the daughter of the Grand Duke of Holstein. The mayor looks on with a serious, contemplative expression. Astaroth smiles gently, telling the mayor she is here to help him. The mayor observes that she looks like her mother and will grow to be a great beauty. He then asks why the House of Holstein is in the slums, and Astaroth explains she's researching a new law and asks for permission to look around. A system window announces the hidden mission is finished, rewarding her with an increase in skills. From a rooftop, Floria and Kai look out over the bleak, misty slum. Oh, the blonde woman stumbles on the uneven roof, grabbing onto a surprised Kai. Finding the road difficult, she shyly asks if she can hold his hand. Kai looks away silently, considering her request. He takes her hand, and a spark seems to pass between them. The narration reveals that Kai was the one who denied his feelings for Floria until the day she died. Floria looks at Kai in surprise, then has a sudden, shocked realization. She expresses awe at the kindness of such things. She graciously thanks the residents as they receive boxes of supplies. Kai remarks that she must be satisfied, as this is the landscape she wanted to see. Astolat watches her sister's charity work, noticing a sickly resident in the background. As Floria thinks about her sister's reaction, Astolat sees a man carrying a crate and realizes with a jolt this is all just for show. Her thought is confirmed. This is all a performance. Floria looks away with a troubled expression, murmuring Kai's name. The narration explains that it's best for high-ranking people to avoid such places. This scene transitions, focusing on a floral pattern. In the end, he is just an assistant, a pair of hands holding yellow flowers. A dark and starry background emphasizes that no matter how high he climbs, he can't reach the stars. Astolat smiles, a clever plan forming in her mind. She raises her hand to get Kai's attention, ready to ask a question. She asks if it's true that the residents survive, thanks to relief supplies. Kai explains that since they only have relief supplies to survive, he'd expected the slums to be long gone. Kai and the mayor stand together, observing the scene with thoughtful expressions. The mayor confirms that they perform these duties regularly as he begins to walk away. Astolat gasps in surprise, her eyes fixed on something an old man is holding. Her gaze is drawn to a magnificent mansion, with the memory of a garden party reflected in a mirror. Holding a small wooden rabbit, she asks if it was made here. The mayor explains that generous purchases allow them to earn a living. Astolat turns to the mayor, asking if he knew, leaving him and Kai surprised. A flashback shows her chibi brother declaring his love for the Sleeping Rabbit series and how much money he spent trying to win one, realizing her brother never got one. Astolat smiles as the mayor recalls something about table number 3. The mayor nods to a younger man who bows in understanding. An ornate, rabbit-themed music box is revealed inside a padded case. Astolat gasps, her face glowing with delight as she whispers, "It's beautiful." Astolat is shocked to learn a rabbit figurine is worth less than a basket of apples. The mayor excuses himself, explaining he has a delivery to make. Past policies meant to help have only served the nobles, making the slums worse. Kai wonders if he'd have spent so much money if he knew the truth about its origin. A flash of anger crosses Astolat's face as she watches the mayor leave. She holds a look of sheer determination. The sun sets over the desolate slum village. The scene shifts as the group begins to disembark from their carriage. Astolat stands with her arms crossed, fuming with irritation. The dark-haired boy whispers something to Astolat, her eyes widening in response. Her eyes glow with a powerful, world-changing realization. The scene transitions to a grand palace under a beautiful sunset. A chibi Astolat lets out a frustrated scream about the neighborhood. A pink-haired man panics, yelling that she is always in dangerous places. He sits down, admitting that origin doesn't define skill. He still insists that the slums are the dangerous underbelly of the country. Astolat listens to his words with a serious expression. He falls silent, gazing downward as a reflection of a woman appears in the mirror behind him. The narration suggests that Kai might be afraid, like a father fearing the loss of his daughter. She and her father sit opposite one another in a sun-drenched room. Her expression is resolute, a decision clearly made. Her father closes his eyes, sighing softly. With a warm and gentle smile, he opens his arms for a hug. She walks toward him, ready for his embrace. He holds her close, and she rests peacefully in his arms. On his lap, she holds up the music box and asks if he remembers the Peony Bloom series. She reveals that the entire luxury series is made in the slums for a pittance. She looks up at her father expectantly, waiting for his reaction. He gently kisses her forehead. They share a warm, loving moment as he holds her on her lap. The scene flashes back to the present, where Astolat and the dark-haired boy stand before Kai. She places a document firmly on his desk. He reads the title, surprised, a development plan for the marginal neighborhoods. She smiles confidently, inviting him to read their proposal. The scene flashes back to 1 week ago. Astolat is found fast asleep at her desk. Someone wakes her with a cup of tea, asking for a method to develop the slum. She and the dark-haired boy discuss the issue over special black tea. She argues the situation would improve if Peony Bloom simply paid proper wages. The boy bluntly asks if they should just bulldoze the whole area. She sarcastically agrees to bulldoze it all, shocking him mid-sip. He asks if she's serious, imagining a giant rabbit statue in front of a mansion. With a devilish smile, she tells the boy, Ryan, that he's about to become very busy. Be prepared, she warns a very startled Ryan. Returning to the present, the camera focuses on the slum development plan. Astolat asks Kai to hear them out before judging their carefully crafted plan. Kai listens intently, his expression serious. She presents her core argument. Peony Bloom is exploiting the slum. Kai looks up, a flicker of shock in his eyes. She points her finger decisively, making her final point to a stunned Kai. Ryan reveals their plan for Peony Bloom and the slums to coexist. A display case is set down on the desk. Inside, a simple, unadorned doll is presented. The two children strike a pose, proudly showing off their idea. Their proposal is to reveal the real manufacturing process, keeping the production line. Ryan explains the product will also benefit from a lower price. Meanwhile, highly skilled residents will craft premium versions with better materials. Astolat passionately explains their two-pronged approach to a listening Kai. HMPH, she turns away with a confident huff, her point made. And, she exclaims, ready to reveal the final part of her plan. She unrolls a scroll, proposing to build a Peony Bloom theme park in the slums. Right, she asks Kai excitedly, who remains completely stone-faced. But a finger taps her forehead, interrupting her grand speech. Kai adjusts his glasses, his expression thoughtful as he prepares his rebuttal. He challenges her, questioning if she can truly convince consumers of its value. She offers a sly, confident smile in response to his doubt. Her elegant shoes take a step forward on the ornate rug. A beautiful blonde woman in a green dress appears, looking distressed. She speaks to Kai, her expression filled with anxiousness. A bead of sweat rolls down her face as she looks on nervously. Turning, she is startled to see Astolat watching them. A warm, sepia-toned memory of a man's face flashes through her mind. The blonde woman gasps aloud, struck by a sudden, shocking thought. The woman looks down, her thoughts clearly troubling her. He reaches out and gently takes her hand. His gaze softens as he looks down at her. In the sunlit hall, they stand together, hands clasped. She recalls the kind, smiling faces of the slum residents. Their hands remain gently intertwined. Kai looks down at their joined hands with a gentle expression. The scene changes as Astolat and Ryan stand before massive, ornate doors. Now, in a new dress, Astolat receives a comforting hand on her shoulder from Ryan. The heavy doors swing open, revealing a long hall beyond. They walk into the grand room toward a man seated in the distance. Astolat stops in her tracks, her eyes widening in surprise. "Good morning," she says, through gritted teeth, a vein throbbing on her forehead. The Marquis of Montpellier looks up with a cool, knowing smile. The children sit opposite the Marquis, ready to begin their meeting. As the Marquis reads their proposal, Astolat can't hide her triumphant grin. She states their purpose plainly. They need investment. Leaning forward, she passionately pitches her development plan to the Marquis. He listens intently, stroking his chin as she assures him he won't regret it. Sitting regally, she challenges him to invest if he is so certain. With a smile, he suggests that the kingdom, Holstein, and Granada invest together. For whose benefit, she demands, her frustration flaring up. She accuses him of planning to expand his own influence while their funds are tied up. She thinks that while she doesn't want to empower Montpellier, new legislation is needed to develop the slums, leaving her with few options. She knows Montpellier can't refuse a deal, offering huge profits and the moral high ground of helping commoners. The Marquis laughs aloud, and she slams her fists down, crying that it's unfair before reluctantly thanking him. A narrator reflects on an effective, though bitter, strategy. A silver-haired man proposes a plan for the slum district, securing its approval through pressure. A man named Kai successfully persuades the slum residents. Kai asks the residents to put their trust in him. Asta sits peacefully, glad that their plan is working. Sitting with the boy, she thinks that things are going smoothly. Her expression shifts to concern as she worries about the legislation. She notes the fierce, noble opposition, while the boy identifies their motive: greed. Asta angrily calls the nobles shameless, but the boy is confident they will succeed. She leans on his shoulder and apologizes softly. Asta feels guilty for dragging him into her problems. She acknowledges that he is the one taking action. He tells her not to apologize, saying it is only natural. Asta decides to address her feelings after their task is finished. The two of them sit together in a quiet moment. They share a close, intimate glance. The scene shifts to villagers diligently working as blacksmiths. Kai informs the village chief that they will proceed as planned. He observes someone who has been working hard since dawn. A blonde woman sews intently, her hands trembling slightly. Left watching her, Kai stifles a quiet laugh. The woman looks up, confused by Kai and the bowing village chief. Asta and the boy arrive, joyfully waving to the villagers. She happily takes the boy by the hand, leading him forward. Kai and the blonde woman stand together, watching them. The group walks through the newly bustling village square. The blonde woman appears lost in her own thoughts. A hand tentatively reaches out for another. Kai gently takes the woman's hand, startling her. She blushes furiously, completely flustered by the contact. They walk away from the others hand in hand. Overcome with emotion, the woman struggles to hold back tears. Crack! A sound of splintering wood echoes from above. A large blue sound effect signifies impending danger. Someone shouts a warning as a chunk of a building falls towards the blonde woman. A hostess screams in horror as debris hurtles towards her. A single purple ribbon falls gracefully through the air. The ribbon, which fell from the blonde woman's hair, lands softly. Kai leaps forward, shielding the woman with a magic barrier and catching her in his arms. As they share a close moment, a voice shouts, "Sister!" Asta stares in disbelief at the dramatic rescue unfolding before her. Rushing over, Asta confirms her friend is okay. Kai maintains his composure as the blonde woman gives a shy smile. While Kai notes the danger, Asta is shocked to learn he can use magic. The blonde woman nervously suggests they should return home quickly. She pauses for a moment, a secretive and thoughtful look on her face. A small, satisfied smile appears as she walks on. Asta watches them go, a look of sudden realization dawning on her face. The woman skips away cheerfully, as Asta and the boy watch unimpressed. The scene transitions to a grand hall filled with whispering nobles. A man in a suit gestures toward a grand sunlit doorway. The dark-haired boy and Asta hold hands, standing together before the ornate doors. As another man approaches, a narrator announces the legislative meeting on slum development will soon begin. The man speaks with a silver-haired noble, noting there is still one remaining variable. Asta stands serenely with a gentle smile as two figures watch her. Count Accord and Count Hjard are identified as those who strongly oppose the slum development. Asta and the boy stand before the two imposing noblemen in the grand hall. The two counts are revealed to be the ones who benefit from the slums remaining unchanged. Asta thinks angrily about how they embezzle funds and exploit the residents' cheap labor. Through a golden frame, two hands clasp firmly in a show of partnership. Phew, inside the frame, the boy lets out a sigh of relief beside Asta. Asta puffs her cheeks as the boy gives her two enthusiastic thumbs up. She smiles contentedly as a tiny version of the boy on her shoulder gives another thumbs up. The blonde-haired Count Eckort humbly reports that he still believes the plan is wrong. The dark-haired Count Hjard angrily argues that filth must be emptied, not recycled. Asta glares, infuriated by his use of the word filth. Seething with rage, she clenches her fists and grinds her teeth. The scene shifts to the silver-haired Kai looking down upon a rustic village from a clifftop. The blonde woman, Floria, looks up at him with a bright, encouraging smile. The two of them stand together on a path overlooking the rugged landscape. She watches him with concern as he looks down, lost in thought. Pardon, Kai reveals he grew up there, enduring stares as people pointed at an ugly pauper. A narrator muses that while the place can change, escaping prejudice is impossible. Kai and Floria stand side by side, looking out over the sprawling village below. Floria offers to be with him, but he sternly refuses, declaring the burden is his alone to bear. He turns away, his expression a mix of pain and determination. Filth? Count Hard sighs, stating that one's origins cannot be changed. Count Eckhart adds that filth should be managed, so it dirties things less. Asta looks confused as a man tells her she'll get hurt stirring a trash can, and hopes she realizes the opportunity. She asks what opportunity he means as the two counts laugh mockingly before her. Back on the cliff, Floria thinks of Kai's name with a worried expression. As someone approaches, Kai covers his face in distress while Floria watches. In the present, Asta watches silently as the two counts walk away. She and the boy cross their arms, sharing a look of mutual disapproval. Asta ponders the situation while the boy looks at her, confused. A dreadful premonition hits as she questions why they always come too late. In her vision, a frantic voice shouts for Princess Floria. Kai stands protectively before Floria, conjuring blue magic to fight off shadowy assailants. A stark message announces that the time of Floria's assassination was approaching. The vision continues, showing Kai defending Floria from the looming attackers. Sensing a presence, Kai holds Floria close and demands to know who is there. A blindfolded assassin appears, offering a painless death if they don't resist. Trapped at the edge of a cliff, Kai and Floria realize there is no escape. Kai looks back at her with a gentle expression and says her name. Floria looks up at him, her eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. Suddenly, armed villagers appear, ready to fight the assassin. Asta gasps and stumbles back into the boy's arms as the vision ends, him asking what's wrong. Clutching her head in panic, she realizes she let her guard down and the timeline is no longer following its original course. A dire warning appears events can now break off unexpectedly. Realizing the vision is real, the boy shouts that Floria is in danger. He stops short, his eyes wide with shocked understanding. He grabs Asta's wrist, urgently calling her name to get her attention. Holding her hand, he stands ready while she looks at him in confusion. He pulls her into a frantic run through the grand, sunlit hall. Elsewhere, a massive magical hammer smashes down as an attacker yells, "Hit harder!" Kai struggles to maintain a magical barrier, shielding Floria from the powerful blow. The burly attacker strains, putting all his weight into the attack. Gah! The magical backlash sends the attacker flying backward. The strain is too much. Kai coughs up blood as Floria screams his name. He stumbles but holds his ground, protecting a terrified Floria. The barrier cracks under the relentless assault, and he knows he can't hold on. With a deafening boom, the hammer shatters his magical defense. A masked assassin with twin blades encourages his allies to press the attack. As Kai pours his remaining energy into the failing barrier, Floria prays desperately. Tears stream down Floria's face as she watches Kai sacrifice himself. Thinking, even then, he musters his magic for one final, desperate act. A translucent hand of energy reaches from him, gently surrounding Floria. A single tear falls from his eye, mixing with the blood on his face. He unleashes a final, brilliant surge of protective magic from his palm. As an assassin shouts in confusion, Kai uses his power to push Floria from the cliff. Safely encased in a magic bubble, Floria is sent floating away from danger. "She's escaping," the masked assassin shouts, ordering his men to stop her. Trapped in the sphere, Floria looks back in horror, reaching for Kai. She screams his name as he collapses defenseless before the approaching assassins. A protective bubble floats gently down from the cliff's edge. The one-eyed leader orders his men to get down and find her. Lying broken on the ground, Kai feels relief, knowing he learned magic to save her. The one-eyed leader and the burly attacker walk toward their fallen foe. Ga, the leader, suddenly turns, delivering a devastating punch to his own man. The burly attacker reels back, completely stunned by the betrayal. A monstrous black dragon emerges from the shadows, towering over the terrified man. Asta, Floria, and the boy arrive dramatically, riding on the dragon's back. Kai looks up from the ground, his expression a mix of pain and disbelief. Floria lands softly, crying out Kai's name as she rushes to his side. She immediately kneels and pulls his injured body into a tight embrace. Overcome with relief, she gently kisses his forehead. Her tears fall freely as she looks at his battered face with profound love. Asta runs up, asking if he's okay, as Kai recognizes her arrival. Spotting his wounds, Asta shouts in alarm that he's bleeding. Asta observes the scene, her expression unreadable and shadowed. Addressing the boy as Ryan, Asta looks toward a second dragon, holding the assassins captive. "Take them all down," she commands, as the captured men scream in terror. A dragon unleashes a torrent of fire, while Floria shields Kai with her body. Floria tenderly cups his cheek, her eyes filled with adoration and relief. Crying tears of joy, she pulls him close in a loving embrace. She leans in and passionately kisses him on the lips. The emotional scene fades, transitioning to a view of a tranquil, ornate room. Now fully healed, Kai looks ahead with a serene and thoughtful expression. Floria watches over Kai as he rests in bed, holding his hand. She looks down at him, a gentle and relieved smile on her face. Kai lifts her hand to his lips, gazing at her with deep affection. He apologizes for trapping her in his world, a cage unworthy of her beauty. Looking through a vision of glowing bars, she calls him a fool. The two embrace peacefully in bed, finding solace in each other's arms. In another scene, Ryan interrogates an assassin, demanding to know who hired him as a dragon breathes fire nearby. The terrified man confesses, screaming the names of Count Heir and Count Accord. With the masterminds revealed, royal guards surround and arrest the two treacherous counts in the Grand Hall. An enraged nobleman screams at Asta and Ryan, asking if they're out of their minds. He furiously questions them about riding a dragon without the king's direct order. He explains that dragons are strictly controlled because a single one can destroy a village. Asta looks worried as a narrator explains that breaking this rule carries severe punishment. A chibi version of the nobleman continues to scold a pouting Asta. Kneeling on the floor, Ryan takes the blame, admitting it was his idea. He looks up, ready to accept the consequences of his decision. Bang! The nobleman slams his desk, shouting that the young duke is also at fault. Asta recalls Ryan's unexpectedly bold actions, a small smile on her face. In a flashback, Ryan calls for Asta from atop the dragon.